to our April 8th, 2019 meeting of the West Orange Board of Education. Mr. Calabano.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's begin. May I have a motion for consideration of the closed and public meeting minutes of March 21st, 25th, and 26th?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second?
All right.
There you go.
Mr. Calabano?
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson,
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales,
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai,
Yes.
President Alper.
Yes. All right. Next up, student liaison report.
We don't have anything today.
Fantastic.
Not even about Mamma Mia?
We didn't go. Oh,
She was there. Oh, yeah. I saw her.
I saw
I
you.
got to see it. I got to usher. It was really amazing. I walked in there not knowing anything about the musical. I'm not really a musical person, but it was I don't know. Every year they always amaze me because they're so talented and singing, dancing, costumes, everything. And it's completely it's almost all student run. So it's really amazing to watch. Yeah.
I think we're all going to agree with that later.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
Dr. Shen?
Ms. DeMendez.
Good evening. We have a few presentations this evening. We're going to begin with the West Orange Mountaineer Academy. I'm going to ask Principal Moore if he would come share just a brief overview of the Mountaineer Academy, how it runs.
There's a slide.
There's just one slide.
Yeah.
I was afraid, I didn't know if it was brief overview.
Is it a good one?
It's just one slide. I know she used the word presentation. I will fall short of that.
I'll duck if needed. It's fine.
But I will do one slide, and hopefully there will be a feeling of accomplishment through that one slide, and that you feel like it's sort of a presentation. That was a nice.
Unless there's a lot.
Every time you need to make a presentation, everything is a presentation.
We're cool? We're good.
I think we're good.
Every time Mr. Haydenmar comes up here,
Mine's just kind of table we can slide out.
it freaks out a little bit.
I have the true effect on technology. This
It's your
is
electric
actually-
personality. That's
Well, I'll start a little bit. Thank you, Mark. That was a nice introduction, and I'm not sure that this is a total presentation, but I am talking a little bit tonight about our West Orange Mountaineer Academy. For those of you that don't know our West Orange Mountaineer Academy, it is a small, I like to call it learning environment, that helps some of our students that may struggle probably a little bit more than the traditional day, and that need a little bit more extra support, both academically, socially, and emotionally. I'm proud of this academy because it has helped us excuse me, let me try again since this is a presentation. I'm proud of this academy because it has helped us help our students to understand that it is not over, that you can always get a second chance. We keep a connection with our students. It helps us to build rapport and trust with our students, which ultimately our goal is to have them graduate. And this academy has worked and done such that. We have improved our graduation rate, but I contribute this academy to some of that because we gave our students a chance to succeed. We gave them a second chance, make sure that we make sure they kept up with their cohort, worked with them differently in the classrooms. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is this academy. It didn't keep our students isolated in the academy. We try to transition them out into the traditional day when possible. But we don't just try to transition them out without supports. We think transition needs supports, and we use the academy to do such. Some of the other things that the academy has provided our students are helping us with changing choices, helping build character. We get to focus on that with our students a little more intent than you do in the traditional classroom. The teachers in the academy, there are some that are here tonight too, that were in the academy. They're a special select group, and those teachers they work with our students differently than maybe students might meet in the traditional day. They come with a little understanding. They have a different way of dealing with some of the behaviors that might impede students' academic success. So those teachers are selected carefully, as well as the coordinator who really takes a personal touch, who adds a personal touch to the academy and keeps the families engaged into what's going on for that student. So the Mountaineer Academy, behind the board, I just bulleted some of the highlights. I didn't want to read to you, so I thought maybe I can do this off the top of my head, and that didn't work out as well as I thought. But I thought that if you take a look at some of the bullets, you can see some of the highlights of the academy and how it helps students, how it helps our students specifically with their individual needs, both academically and socially and emotionally. Is there any questions about the academy? Are
Ms.
there any-
Scales?
Yes.
Start with the board.
How many students do you currently have?
Okay, presently 34.
All right, and is that about average, or?
We were, prior to this year, we ran about 20 to 26, 34 this year. I feel like that has increased partly from the success of the academy helping students graduate, also our commitment to bringing out-of-district students back home and keeping them with their home district, and our commitment to not sending our kids out of district and us holding on to them as much as possible.
Right. And you did mention socially, emotionally, we're supporting the students. So if there is any misbehavior, how is that handled within the academy?
Yes, it's right within the academy. Some of it can be a restorative moment. Others, there can be discipline applied, but it's all within the academy and is done with the student and their parent. And the coordinator usually takes place, and of course the administration.
Right. And I understand restorative justice is
Practices.
is about getting at the root cause of behavior. And so as the students transition back in, this is more or less like an intervention? It's,
I would like to think it's an intervention, but let's talk about that from restorative practices, because we are moving more into restorative justice. We haven't done that in full boat, but we are moving in that direction. But restorative practices, yes. It is like an intervention, because what we do is we transition kids. Maybe they'll take 1 or 2 classes, then stay with us. We work on that. We still do individual goals for each student, academic goals. So we monitor their academic progress. Also, if they're taking classes outside the academy, we monitor their behavior outside. We speak with the teachers that they have classes with outside, things of those
right. And did you tell us how long the average student is in the academy?
Well, okay, so we keep them up to a year, but usually a semester, and then we start looking at a transition process. However, students can stay in the academy up to a year. Then there are students that have a comfort level with the academy, and it's not that we have them there full-time for a year, but if it's appropriate, we will allow them to take 1 or 2 classes in the academy, especially if it's a student that may have been recovering from school phobia or something in which they made a connection with someone in the academy. We're very careful about that.
Okay, thank you very
Okay,
much.
no worries.
Ms. Mordecai?
Thank you for your hard work on this. I know this is your baby, so to speak. You've been working with the Mountaineer Academy for several years.
Yes.
No pressure. I know when Betty Madalena was here, God rest her soul, she brought back in a lot of students to the tune of $1.6 million savings to the board. I don't know what the figure is for the students that you've brought back in, but it's always, I know the community always wants to know, why do we send so many students out of district? I know over the years we've tried our best to improve our program here to keep the kids with their neighborhood schools, with their friends and everybody. And also it's cost effective as well. But number one goal is to make sure the students are with their home students and getting the best educational opportunity that's possible.
Okay, so this year we're at that 1.5. Okay,
Right
so
on
we
target.
saved 1.5. So this year we're 1.5 we saved.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it was clean, you know, the numbers were good, but I'm all set, 1.5.
Okay, good. So Betty's smiling. Yeah. How many classes are in the academy?
Four classrooms, but they get their core classes in the academy, and then if there is an elective class that students need to take outside of the academy, they do that as well. So students get their full complement of courses.
Okay.
They're in the academy, so the academy for a lot of their core classes, so that takes up a portion of their day, a good portion of their day, but most students, a lot of students, have one or two classes outside the academy, or maybe three, depending how they transition. So we don't impede students from progressing academically. We just add support and structure to students so that they build the necessary work ethic and acumen so that they are able to perform independently in the traditional day.
Okay. So students still get their core subjects
Correct.
as well as fine and performing arts and athletics and everything.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Athletics is also earned. It depends on that, but it also is earned. But yes, you can earn that. We don't believe in pulling that. We actually think sports help. As long as they earn their points to get there, we use it as part of the intervention. We help with it, and we go to their games. We're very dedicated. If a student joins a sport, we celebrate that as well.
Thank you, and thank you to the administration and staff that are in that program.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson?
Mr. Moore, thank you for you and your team for your hard work. I think you're actually being a little too modest. The $1.5 million in savings by bringing kids, keeping kids who may have been sent out of district, keeping them in district, that's huge. Talk a little bit about the types of challenges that the students face and about your graduation rate. It's impressive. Talk about it.
Well, it's a variety. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate it. And thank you for the kind words. The students, it's an array. Since it's a small population, I'm going to speak in generalities, okay? Just so that we don't identify anyone,
Exactly.
whether a teacher or student. So let's say this. There's a variety of different struggles students have, some psychological, some emotional, some anxieties. What we do with that, and they range. So you have substance abuse to maybe you might have a student with school phobia or a student cutting school or whatever may be the case. What we try to do is curtail and customize their individual goals and work on those goals for that individual, whether general ed or special ed. We work in the same manner. We work on the goals of whatever behaviors impeded or emotions impeded. We work on, correcting those, or let's not use maybe correcting, or helping them cope and be able to accomplish what they need to in school. So when it comes to counseling and therapeutic, we work as more of a collateral contact. So we would, we would work with anyone's counselor as long as we have a release. If there are certain things they need, we work right within the academy with that and so forth. So we will work with each individual student, and to answer your question, we custom that to what that struggle may be and what that need may be.
And the graduation rate.
Yeah, we graduate practically all the seniors that are there. I think we are on target for everyone, maybe one senior that we're having trouble with, but we tend to do that. One of the reasons for the academy is to help students dropouts, to be honest with you. It's about stopping them from thinking it has to be about dropping out, and us taking on the responsibility of helping them succeed, because they have to live beyond the walls of West Orange, and we understand that. So we understand the importance of the academy and in terms of graduation. So graduation is more than a rate. It's really about living beyond these walls and how important it is to us that each one of our students in our community graduate.
Thank you. I just think it's remarkable because you're combining, you have the academics, you have the social emotion, addressing the social emotional needs, the restorative justice. You're providing really
restorative
supportive
practices.
Restorative practices.
I want to be honest, because restorative justice has a whole
I
thing
apologize.
to it. That's all right.
Restorative practices, but you're really providing supportive change, the behavior modification.
Yes.
The therapeutic environment.
Yep.
I think what you and your team do is pretty incredible, and your results over the
The
years.
teachers
have been,
and the present
the
coordinator are
teachers, and
excellent.
it's been
They've done it.
phenomenal.
They've helped and made things happen.
And nearly 100% graduation rate. So
Yeah.
that's pretty special. Helping them to live outside of these walls and pursue their futures.
That's right.
Thank you.
Ms. Marklinger?
So I want to, again, congratulate you on this program. I think it's excellent, and we're doing a great job, especially with keeping students in West Orange schools and with their peers. The question I have is, it seems like it's a one-to-one kind of almost ratio with the students and giving them the attention that they need. And I know there's a coordinator position. Have we thought about expanding that to maybe 2 coordinators, one who's focused on the behavior side with restorative practices, and another one on the academic side, working on a lot of the administrative pieces of it. And then with that, in addition to that, is there anything else that the program needs that would help improve it even further and from where it's already doing so well?
Well, I want to thank you. That's a good question, and there's some there's a lot of thoughts in that question that I would like to address. So the first, originally I was hoping that maybe I could possibly, because maybe we fell short, we thought maybe we can work with. Originally the thought was maybe we can do something like that. I think the budget has not enabled that. We had to make some decisions, some tough ones, but we made some decisions, and I think I'm comfortable with that. But they're not, as far as would I like to, I would like more staff, of course, that's very helpful. But in terms of what would be helpful going forward, I think I would like to expand a little bit more on that restorative end of things. And again, what I think in order to do that, though, there is a classroom. I think we would have to create a little bit of a restorative room, which I can show you. I had it sketched out, a thought we had about creating a restorative room where the coordinator can actually, that is trained in restorative justice, can actually, and the teachers, or whoever may be using the room at the time, can use the room, and it's dedicated to that. And then also the coordinator's office just right next to that, and utilize and maximize the space we have down there. So if there's anything, it's maybe I'm looking at improve by creating a room, so some walls maybe, because there's already a classroom there. I would like to split the classroom, and create a room dedicated to that, because I think that when we dedicate and throw energy into that, then that's where our thoughts are, and that's where we would be. So I'd like to look at that going forward.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for helping as well, and stick around if you would in case there's questions after agenda comment. Do you have something? Hold on one sec.
Just before you go, Mr. Moore, I heard it from a very reliable source that other school districts are very interested in our academy here, and they are. You want to tell us about that?
So, and I want to shout out South Orange and Montclair. They're my friends, the principals, but they're very interested in our program. They like our program. They want to model it. Orange wants to fully model it, and they've come. They've taken the notes. I've met with them. I've met with their vice principal, and I've also met with them. I've met with Montclair's. Met with Montclair's new principal, who's a very nice gentleman. And in my roundtable, this was a highlight. People thought the program had some traction, and they liked it. So I've invited other schools have asked, and I've invited other schools to come see it.
That's quite a feather in your cap when you are considered a best practice, and people want to emulate what you're doing. So again, congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you to Mr. Moore, to your team again for the excellent work with the Mountaineer Academy and with our students, and your commitment to making sure that they not only graduate, but graduate well. I'm going to ask the board to have a seat in the audience, and we're going to have a presentation with curriculum and instruction updates, and it is a presentation. Good evening. Tonight we're just going to give a very brief update on some areas of curriculum and instruction. I'm going to begin with the Math 6 through 8 program, and then I will move into the ELA K through 5 materials update. Our math program in grades 6 through 8 is in a process of being evaluated, explored, considered for revision. In 2016-17, we were in year one of really beginning to examine our math program at the middle school level. We currently have the Connected Math program, and it's in its about 7th year with us in the district. There was a committee formed to examine those program materials, and our teachers and our parents unanimously felt that there were concerns around CMP, and while some expressed that it was initially maybe a good program, there were some teachers who felt that initially in its original form it might have been a good program. However, through the years it began to change. There was some lack of additional practice and resources for students, lack of resources for the teachers, and the teachers found themselves supplementing the program with Glencoe materials. As a result, in 2016-17, and as a part of our strategic plan, a goal was developed to evaluate the grade 3 through geometry math program. In year two, in 2017 and 18, a formal committee was established to evaluate the district's math program. Those findings were presented to the board in June of 2018. And in the 6 through 8 portion of that presentation, a recommendation was made by that committee of teachers, and we had some parents on there as well, to replace the 6 through 8 CMP 3 program. So in year 3, which is this year, a committee was established again to begin to explore the different programs that might exist that would adequately service the goals of our students, the alignment to the standards, and to the needs of our middle school curricular program. They reviewed 5 math programs and selected the top 2 programs, Reveal and Ready Math. In this spring, they are now in process at our middle schools in grades 6, 7, and 8. All teachers across the middle schools are piloting Reveal and Ready Math. The materials were given to the district, donated, so therefore that's how those materials were obtained. Nothing was purchased. This is a pilot so that we can see which program would best fit our needs. And the committee will present their final recommendations to the board by the end of May. The idea would be to adopt one of the 2 piloted programs, either Reveal or Ready. All teachers, again, have those materials from the pilots. The representative from the adopted program will also provide professional development to our teachers. Therefore, in our budget, we see that there was an allotment made to the purchase of a math program for grades 6 to 8 based on the past 3 years' work, depending again on which program is selected by the teachers after they have completed their piloting. Next year would be our 4th year with this work. Our hope is to implement the adopted math program 6 through 8, whether it is Ready or Reveal, to continue professional development and support for the teachers during the implementation, and informational sessions and workshops for parents as well, so that we can really make a very strong connection between home and school. As in year 1, this was one of the greatest concerns of the parents, that there were wonderings around how to best support the students with this new math. In English Language Arts, K through 5, we went through a similar process. It started after the math began, so year 1 was 2018-19. Here we are today. We established an ELA evaluation committee to examine district materials and how they support the balanced literacy model. This came after a lot of feedback the previous year from teachers, from staff, regarding the need for materials across elementary schools to better support the program. They were looking for supplemental reading and writing materials. We provided an update to the board to this end in January of 2000 need. We talked about what the feedback was from teachers. We talked about what we were hearing in listening sessions. We talked about the things that we were suggesting that we would examine. Therefore, the committee was assembled to really take a look at the materials that we have in the district to find out if they were consistently being implemented in all of the schools, and how we can better support the balanced literacy program. As such, that committee recommended units of study be provided to include mentor text, teaching points, and mini lessons as an additional support. So this is not a new program. This is not new curriculum. These are supplemental materials that are really selected by the staff just to support the instruction that they have in play. The reading units of study were purchased this year through ESSA funds and will be disseminated in June to our K-5 teachers along with the professional development that they have been receiving throughout this year. At the same time, K-3 curriculum revisions are being made to include references and alignment to the units of study and to those supporting materials. And again, professional development around best practices around the balanced literacy model has been provided to all K-5 teachers. It will continue next year, and we are obtaining feedback to better inform that PD and to make any adjustments necessary so that it's more relevant to the teachers. Next year, therefore, as a phase 2, so this year the teachers selected their units of study and we were able to provide them with the reading. Next year, we'll provide them the supplemental materials for writing units of study and provide additional professional development. Also, we've done a lot of work with curriculum. So based on board feedback last year, we were advised that when we submit curriculum to be adopted by the board, it only appears on the agenda as an item, right? Approve ELA or approve math curriculum, but that the board doesn't really get to see what that entails, or the public. So what we did at the beginning of this year, July, August, we started with developing a curriculum development process that would really consider a few things. The first thing is that in order for us to successfully go through a systemic process for adoption, it could take minimally 3 years. So we have to consider curriculum development, we have to consider adopting a course, then we have to consider budgeting for that, and then if it gets approved in the budget, then implementing, right? So there in itself takes a good 3 years. So we developed a system or a process so that when we're thinking about developing curriculum and the curriculum identifies the support materials that need to be considered, and then the committees go about identifying which programs or which supplemental resources to adopt, they have to be placed in the budget, and then they have to be put into the master schedule. So here you will see a whole process that really considers all aspects of that adoption and takes it over time. Also, instead of now receiving curriculum, instead of now receiving just an item on an agenda, all curriculum as it comes to the board will come with a cover page. And in this cover page on the left side, what you will see is a course overview. It will say the essential course information, so if it's a course revision, if it's a new course that's being developed, how many credits it bears. If it's a full year, it will bear 5 credits. If it's a requirement for graduation, if it's a general education course, a core course, an honors course, and then there will be an overview provided for each unit. So in this cover sheet here, again on the left side, there are 7 units in this curriculum that would be presented to the board. It would come with the cover sheet with an overview of each unit. It would let you know the estimated class time. And on the right side, it would give you a flow chart as to where it fits within the larger system of curriculum. This is important specifically, for example, with math. there was concern or questions around the flow of math and what the preparedness needed to be in 6th grade in order to move through the middle school and enter into our IH and IM programs. And so then therefore all of our curriculum will now be coupled with how does this fit into the larger scope of curriculum development and or preparedness as students move through their career, 6th grade through high school. If you notice on the left, I know it's small, but on the left side it says units and they're underlined. These will be hyperlinks. These will be hyperlinks into stage 1 of the actual curriculum. We're currently developing a website for curriculum and instruction, which we hope will be live in September as the board moves to adopt a new website. And so then this will be our portal to parents. So parents will also have access to the cover sheet for each curriculum. They will be able to click on the hyperlink for each unit, and they will be able to get an overview of stage 1, which is the objectives, the transfer goal, the desired understandings, and the essential questions of the curriculum. I think this is good so that when we're communicating with parents, then we are very clear about what the expectations are in that course, specifically around enduring understandings and essential questions. New to our curriculum development here is the transfer goal, and the transfer goal is about independence. So it's not just we're going to learn skills and content knowledge, which was the framework we were coming out of, but now we're going to say, how am I going to apply this independently across all of the curriculum and outside of the classroom? And so then all of our curriculum must include transfer goals that are very specific to each unit, and in stage 2, we assess that transfer goal. Now, we will not be able to share stage 2 naturally with community because that's the actual assessment. But we will share stage 1, which will let you know what is being assessed. So a parent could potentially take the transfer goal and look at the understandings and the essential questions and then get a very clear idea of what is my child being assessed in this class. On the left, you will have all of the content students will know, and then all of the skills students will be able to. For this next section, I'm going to give an update on our middle school honors. Our middle school honors program provides students performing above grade level standards an advanced course of study where content is explored in greater depth and complexity. We currently provide honors in our middle schools and in our high school, but this presentation is specifically around grades 6, 7, and 8. We have honors courses in ELA, in math, in science, and social studies. And in 2017-18, the criteria was changed again. It's been revised quite a few times. So this is last year's criteria. Last year's criteria was that students should have a B average in the grade level subject. They had to take a content area placement exam, a content area writing sample, and a teacher recommendation had to be provided in order for a student to be eligible for the honors program. There was a placement exam waiver offered. Students currently in a 6th or 7th grade honors class who had an average of 80% or higher for marking periods 1 and 2 were able to waive out of the exam. We are not changing this criteria. This criteria is still in effect. Today, what we're providing is our report out and our understanding of wanting to exempt students from taking the exams. Feedback and concerns from parents, from staff, from students was that all of these exams were really taking a toll and a great impact on instructional time. Students were taking exams in up to 4 areas: ELA, math, science, and social studies. They would have to sit for all 4 exams. Second, it was too many assessments. They had honors placement exams, they had honors writing samples, they had our district assessments of MAP and PARC. There were questions around the validity of the honors assessments. And as we began to hear the feedback, as we began to do the listening sessions, as we began to sit with staff and with some parents, we asked ourselves a question. The question was, is there a strong correlation between district assessments and honors enrollment? And if so, can we eliminate some of the honors placement testing? So that was the question that really drove our data analysis. And this is what we found. Currently, there are 956 seats in honors, grades 6 through 8. There's 12% in ELA, 17% in social studies, 18% in math, and 18% in science. 80% of those 956 seats scored 80 to 85% higher on MAP and the top levels of PARCC. We shared these findings with the Middle School Honors Committee, and we began to explore options for then exempting students from the placement exams. Why? If they're already scoring at these levels on district assessments that are already in place, is it necessary for 956 students to take up to 4 honors placement exams plus district writing assessments and all of the other assessments that are taking place when the criteria that the district already, district assessment data that the district already possesses already shows that there's a strong correlation between their honors placement and their performance. So after the committee reviewed or explored the idea of exemptions, we decided that the students in grades 6 and 7 who are currently in honors can continue to remain in honors with the B average. So this was the same criteria from 17-18. We did not change that. We're interested in the exemption. For students in grades 5, 6, and 7 who are new to honors, we believe that we can exempt them from the placement exam if they have an 85 or higher on the MAP, if they meet the PARCC scale score range that we've identified, if they have an A in their core content area course and a teacher recommendation. There's no need to have these students who are already meeting the criteria sit again for the placement exams. 80% of our students meet this criteria, 80% of the 956. So, less than 200 students would have to actually sit for the exam. We no longer have to shut down the day to say, let's stop everything for honors placement exams. We can schedule the assessments for the students who are interested, and we can exempt any students who are already meeting the alternate criteria. Entrance criteria for new students then could continue to be the B in the core content area course. They can continue to take the placement exam and the writing sample. We're not changing the criteria, and have the teacher recommendation. What this presentation is about, it's about exemption. It's not about changing the criteria. So here's our data. If we look at, excuse me, if we look at our honors 2018 enrollment and our 2019 projections, and we look at the pink boxes with the asterisk, in 6th grade, just with MAP and PARCC alone, we still haven't looked at the grades and the teacher recommendations, which is the other part of the criteria because we're not there yet. But just with those two alone, we already have identified 62 students who are potentially exempt from taking assessments. Likewise, in math, 63, in science, 78, and social studies, 62. If we look diagonally, 6th grade, at the peach color or the salmon colored box, this year we have 28 students in 6th grade ELA. And of the 28 students, if you move down diagonally, the same 28 have the B. They would stay in honors. That's 100% moving from 6th to 7th grade. If we look at the table at the bottom from 2017 to 2018, we had 84% of the students moving or staying in honors. So we're seeing a strength being built in the students actually remaining or being able to perform at this level and stay in the program. If we look at the blue diagonally, then we'll see from 7th to 8th grade, 56 students are in the program this year, and 55 are projected to enter next year. That's a 97%, again, increasing from the 90% from the previous year of being able to retain students in the honors program. And then we can look at these data across math, science, and social studies, math specifically being broken out between pre-algebra and algebra 1. And as we begin to collect these data, we'll be able to analyze them in greater detail and really determine what our needs are for our honors programs. So today we've provided the board with an update on our next steps in terms of honors. We have a parent information night tomorrow, April 9th at Edison at 6:15. We have a second one on the 25th at Central Office. It's the same night, same meeting, so if a parent can't make tomorrow, they can make the one on the 25th. It's posted on our website. It's been up for a little while. Letters went out today just to remind our parents that these meetings are coming up. And on May 1st, we're going to have 2 sessions, one in the daytime for school leaders to really talk about MAP and how we're analyzing that data and how we're using it, and then one in the evening for parents to really explore the reports, explore MAP and how it works, so that if the parent really wants to engage with the program and the data around MAP, they can do so with their students. Our process is between April and early June. Letters to parents regarding interest in honors will be sent out by the course. We will identify exemptions and notify students and parents. So a letter will go out to parents to say, are you interested in applying for honors, and to the students in these 4 areas. They will send it back. We'll have our rosters. We will reply back to the parents, great, you don't need to test, you're already exempt, and only the students who need to test will be scheduled. We will administer the placement exams. We will score those. We will notify parents and students of our honors and placements. We will also review appeals. Those are still in process. And then we'll finalize schedules early. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. And I do applaud the efforts and the outcomes for reviewing consistency across schools and across classrooms. That's very important, and that's not usually done on a consistent basis. So I applaud you for taking that step and realizing that there was work to be done. So I noticed June, the K-5 teachers are going to be getting the reading units of study. So why so late in this school year?
Great question. This was the year that the committee was formed to examine their materials and to select. So they just identified those materials. We were able to order those materials, and now they're coming in. And then when we provide it to them in June, it will be coupled with the PD that they need so that they can plan over the summer and use them to inform any kind of planning.
Okay, and so then next year, the writing materials, at what point will they be ordered and the PD?
As soon as you approve them in the budget, we can order them after July 1st.
So we'll have the reading and the writing concurrently?
Yes, absolutely.
And teachers will be getting PD over the summer. I know the teachers are very
Over the year.
excited
They
about
are.
the prospect of getting these supplemental materials. And to further clarify the point that it is not a new program. It is not new curriculum, but it is supporting the existing curriculum. And when you talk about balanced literacy, we have to make sure that there is balance and that teachers have all the materials that they need to differentiate instruction. So I'm really happy to see that we're moving in that direction. When we looked at the transfer goal, really interested in that. That's really taking student learning to the application level. And that's kind of new. Did you mention that that was new?
That's something that we started with our new curriculum template. We're in an understanding by design model. We began that work in 2016-17. I think what we're seeing in our data is a clear gap between independence and guided support in the
Right.
classroom. So when we're thinking about a question like, well, why do students perform well in a classroom as evidenced by grades, but not well on an assessment? Generally, it's because of the need to develop independence. And so then when I'm in a classroom and the teacher's providing some direct support or some guidance, then I tend to do better. If I'm at home and I'm doing an assignment or a project, I may have resources available to me, I may have parent help, and so then I do well. But when I sit for an assessment by myself independently, can I apply it? When I leave my classroom of ELA, can I walk into my classroom of social studies, transfer the reading that I learned, the skills that I learned, and apply them in a different content area? Can I apply it to a new and authentic situation without being prompted? So can I reach into my own thinking, my own schema, and say, this was the strategy that I used in math, and therefore when I enter my classroom, let me reach into my own toolkit, right, and now apply that into the science content. And that is what transfer is about. I think we're starting to see a nice shift in independence and students who are really working toward that end. It is a deliberate focus of ours. We've deliberately placed it into the curriculum. We've deliberately taken our assessments, our performance-based assessments, and wrapped them around transfer so that we can measure independence, and then we believe that over time we'll see a stronger student.
Right, right. So that's the authentic learning and the
Absolutely.
sustained learning.
Sure.
Okay, great. And just one more. Really happy about fewer assessments. The point
We
being
are too.
made that we have to have multiple assessments in order to get students into programs, but we don't have to over-assess. And so I'm so happy that we're building in exemptions. So where students have already indicated and demonstrated their grasp, we're not testing them to death. So thank you very much. Okay.
Absolutely. Ms. Mordecai?
Thank you. I think we're all happy about less testing. We've been crying for less testing for years. Thank you for all your hard work, and thank you to the members of the committee for this. This is good. We always ask for more communication, and I know for the last couple years, the board has been stressed with priority and serious issues over the last couple years. So this is good to have this in-depth presentation. I wish we had it a couple of weeks ago, and then maybe we wouldn't have made the comments we made about the curriculum and the budget. But this is good. Thank you for this information, because as a board, you have to have the information so you can make a decision with data. So this is good. In thinking further down the road, I know South Orange Maplewood has done away with prerequisites for honors and AP classes. Is that something we can look into to broaden the number of students that are getting into honors and AP? Because I know when we look at those classroom sizes at the high school level, you may have only a handful of students in AP or honors, and maybe there's some students that are literally on the edge, maybe a point away from being into a class.
I think the district is finding itself in a place where we need to identify our philosophy around honors, in particular around prerequisites, around allowing students the opportunity to enter into rigorous courses and really advocate for self in those courses and demonstrate that they can. I think it's something that needs to be discussed, and again, a philosophy that needs to be developed. I've seen systems where honors comes with very strong criteria and prerequisites, and there are sides of the argument who would say, you know, they need to demonstrate in order to be here. I want my child to be in the classroom, or the student, I want to be in a classroom where I'm challenged. I've seen other systems where there is no criteria for honors. The student comes with their portfolio, they advocate, they say why they want to be in the honors program, and then they demonstrate. And if they can meet the work at the expected level of rigor, then they get to stay. So I think that's certainly a conversation that needs to be had, as well as what grade should we really be beginning honors in? Should we really be beginning honors in 6th grade? I think that's a question and a conversation that a lot of staff and parents are asking for us to have. Why do we have it in 6th grade? Doesn't mean that we shouldn't. It just means why. We should know why we are pushing for honors. We should know why we're pushing for it in all 4 academic areas. Again, not taking a position on it as much as we need to be able to answer that question. We need to know why we're instituting the things that we institute, and we need to know that the district as a whole is in agreement with whatever the philosophy is. So I do believe that a philosophy needs to be developed.
Yeah, I think we should be reviewing that as well. I know when our interim superintendent was here, Mr. O'Neill, when we implemented PARC, I remember him saying that because of PARC, we had to push the rigor down to make sure the students are prepared. And now that we're doing away with PARC and we may end up with a PARC-like test or no PARC at all, we really should be reviewing that. Thank you again to all the faculty, staff, and committee members that worked on this.
Would be a good conversation for a workshop, maybe even a town hall at some point, because there's a lot to talk about with the philosophy.
Absolutely.
Mr. Robertson?
First of all, thank you very much for this. This is the most comprehensive presentation we've had on curriculum since, I think, spring 2017 or fall 2016. So thank you. Really appreciate that. To piggyback on something Ms. Mordecai mentioned, from a process standpoint, it will help us to be more effective in making decisions and communications if we have this far in advance of the budget decisions. So we're not then asking questions that would have actually already been answered in this. But that's a key learning for the future. That's very helpful. A couple of things. Okay. First, starting with math 6 to 8. Now, I know that one of the things the committee was looking at was the linkage, what the articulation was going from K-5 to 6 to 8 for math, because there were concerns raised by parents and by teachers about the depth of K-5 math, and were they addressing enough pre-algebra concepts and geometry concepts in K-5 so that they'd be properly prepared to deal with it in 6-8, going back to that whole continuum. And I remember when the change actually occurred when we took on everyday math and connected math. You know, 1 minute in 3rd grade, my son is actually dealing with some pre-algebra type concepts, simple things like solving for an unknown, right? And then all of a sudden it was gone, and it wasn't showing up in the new everyday math stuff. And so first question is, how is that being addressed? Because it's really one continuous K-8 continuum that then is going to help propel these kids into success in high school.
So, yes, in 16-17, we began with the CMP program. However, when we began to dig into CMP, we began to have the transition conversations, and a really good consideration was being made for that systemic, vertical, and horizontal alignment.
Right.
So the committee, again, if you look at year 2, you'll see that that goal was not limited to 6-8 because we immediately had to push down in order to really address this systemically. So the goal was grade 3 through geometry. We needed to evaluate multiple areas of the math program and where are those core placements of algebra linkages and data and discrete math and all of those things. How is that being funneled all the way down to kindergarten? The committees ran simultaneously, side by side, in the same room. So we had all teachers who were involved in that committee work, grade 3 through geometry. The presentation made to the board in June 2018 for 6-8 said that we needed a new program definitively. They were ready to move on that recommendation. The IMET that they were using, the protocol they were using to examine the materials clearly delineated there was a need for a new program, and therefore you saw that recommendation. For elementary, that was not the case. Elementary materials showed an alignment to IMET, alignment to standards. It showed that the everyday math program was meeting the current standards. There were 2 things that were happening at the same time, however. The evaluation was taking place, and we are on our expiration date for the K-5 elementary program. Next year will be the last year of a 5-year program. So the state requires us to reevaluate all programs on a 5-year cycle, and we're at the end of our subscription. So the committee then decided, since we are now entering, remember, for the curriculum process, we need to back everything up at least 3 years in order to get it into the budget. So the committee grades 3 through geometry began last year. That would be their year 1. And then this year, they're now looking at materials. So next year, they can make a recommendation, because next year they will be piloting. So next year they will pilot, and then you'll find at the end of that year they'll be making a recommendation for 21, 22 to say this needs to go in the budget because these are the materials. They too are reviewing. Now, I did meet with the K-5 committee, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, to ask them where they were in their progress. We discussed at length the idea of, if we have an opportunity to go K-8,
Right.
let's take it.
Yeah.
The committee unanimously feels that if the opportunity is there, they will. However, they want to be able to pilot the programs,
Sure.
and if the pilot does not return favorable to having the same program, K-5, 6, 8, they want to have the authority and permission to be able to do that. And therefore, we have greater than 50 teachers looking at all of these materials over 3 years. I respect the decision of the teachers. While to us it seems logical, it seems right, but they're seeing something different. And so if we're going to allow teachers the autonomy to work for 3 years on a program and analyzing materials and really having these tough conversations. And I have to give a plug to the teachers and commendation to them. They're not sitting in a room just reading something casually. I mean, I think this is probably the most intense work that they're giving themselves to voluntarily after hours, right?
Yep.
They sit and they go through these protocols. They dig into these tools, into these resources. They're really stretching into questions and how are the questions asked, and if those questions really address the needs of the students, and are we pressing into complexity and depth and all of the other technical terms, right? Are they really accomplishing what math needs to? And if they come back with a recommendation, then who are we to say no, right? We want you to do it this way. The teachers need to be able to have that latitude, and we're giving them that. So they're going to be piloting the programs. They're piloting Reveal and Ready.
Yep.
If they choose the same as the middle school, great. We will have the same program K-8. K-8. If they don't, then I think we're going to listen to their presentation. I think that they will rightly justify their decision. I believe that they will have the data that they need to do that. More importantly, we need to give them the permission to do that so that they can work within their expertise. At the end of the day, they're the ones in the classroom. They're the ones who have to work with the materials.
Yep.
We don't. And I think that's where we are today. So
Excellent.
Okay.
I'm glad we're empowering our teachers in that manner. Once again, they're on the front lines. I think kind of philosophically, a question we're going to have to answer is, even though the current program may have been meeting the state standards, when we looked at the scores and everything, were they meeting our standards in terms of our math continuum?
And are they still meeting them
And are they still
today
meeting those
in
standards?
2019-20 when we adopt?
Right. Also, I'm very happy that the new programs we're piloting have better parent supports, because that disappeared after Everyday Math when they got the parent letters. So that's excellent. Going on to language arts. Also, so people understand with the math, we actually did get a presentation. There was a lot of other stuff going on at the time. We did get a presentation from the committee with recommendations to do the pilot June of last year. So this didn't come out of the blue. There was a recommendation, and this is the follow-through on that recommendation. But there was just a lot of going on at the time, so excuse us if we didn't pick that up. English Language Arts, K-5. Very happy that the direction we're pushing in to make sure that the teachers have the instructional materials that they need. They've had to piece together, and that caused both a lot of work for the teachers, extra work for the teachers, as well as some discontinuity going from classroom to classroom and school to school. My question, is partly that I see this was year one is 2018, 2019. I remember having this discussion a couple of years ago about the needs of K-5 ELA. And so this means our teachers have actually been working without these materials for a few years. And I just want to recognize their efforts in having pushed through that. Going on to the curriculum overview. Let me see. And first of all, very happy that you've laid out a very detailed curriculum development process. Thank you for that. I think process and communication are going to be the key throughout. In the curriculum overviews for the board, actually, we were getting the top line, the snapshots, the one-sheeters are great. We were actually getting far more in-depth ones earlier at one point, where Ms. Berg and others were giving us the more extensive slideshows and going into more depth. And we were at the time able to, for those who wanted to, go online and actually look at the curricula and look at sample lesson plans. And, it'd be good to be able to have that depth. One of the things that we were able to note, for instance, is that we were missing something, and a lot of times that's been a challenge for us, enrichment curricula. So even for that kid who's not in honors, who's making straight A's in the general ed class, we often didn't have that enrichment level of curricula to make sure that child is motivated, challenged, and challenged at his highest level without being frustrated. And that's something. How are we addressing enrichment for gen ed?
Sure. So first, with what was provided in the past, I think what was provided in the past was really a guidance document. If we lay the two side by side, I think we're going to see some very, very, very great differences. That's first. The second, again, there will be hyperlinks on these cover pages, so the board and community alike will be able to click in. We have a repository that we've built in Google, and so then you will still be able to click on the hyperlink. Now this time, not just curriculum as a whole, but by unit, so that you can specifically look at how the unit is being addressed. We will only provide stage 1 because, again, stage 2 is assessments, and we won't release those. But the board and the community, again, alike, will have access into those units so that you can see what they are. A difference also in this process of curriculum development that we began in 16-17, so I think we're on year 3 of our new curriculum development, is that, number one, curriculum is no longer being developed by one teacher over the summer. Curriculum is now being developed over the past 3 years with a team, and we're developing it together. So that way, when we say a team, it's not a team on one content area necessarily. It's a group of teachers working on their content with the other grades at the table. So if I'm developing grade 4, grade 3 is with me, and so is grade 5, so I can ensure that I have that vertical.
Got it.
All right? The second thing is that our process is now curriculum development, general ed, core. After we have that team finish developing the core, then a special education team comes behind it to push in specific strategies per unit, not global strategies like we saw in the past that might say, oh, differentiate the instruction. Well, what is that? What does that look like for this specific unit? What does that look like for this transfer goal? Small group work. Well, what does that look like for this unit? What does that look like for this transfer goal? So now the special education team pushes behind it to bring in those strategies. Then our third layer, which is our next year goal, is then ESL experts will push in behind it to bring in, now for the second language learner, what will that look like? So that will bring us enrichment, that will bring us honors is already built into that, that will bring us differentiation, that will bring us special education, that will bring us ESL. And because we have been in this now for 3 years, it will not take us years to develop the curriculum. As soon as I'm done Unit 1, I'm passing it on to the next team in my virtual site, so people can just tap in. Special education teachers are present, so they're working with those teachers. It's not an independent function. ESL teachers are present, so they're working with those teachers, and now we're collaboratively developing a comprehensive curriculum.
Got it. Got the core teams, you got the different teams at different levels, and that's how the enrichment and the honors and all that's going to come out of that same process. All right. And also, thank you, once again, this is great support for parents, being able to, it's very user-friendly, be able to click on the link, be able to see what's going on with the unit. My next question had to do middle school honors. Yeah, I think we're all ecstatic that we're looking at reducing the amount of testing, right? And something to keep in mind that the past 3 years we've gone in leaps and bounds in terms of, well, we've been increasing graduation rates steadily since 2011. We've been increasing in the number and the 4-year college attendance rate since 2011. We've been increasing in the number of kids going to top 20, top 30, top 50 schools since then. And this year and last year we had the most ever. They came from an old honor system which didn't have this amount of testing. So here's my question, 2 things. One, it looks like we're still going to be using the old honors criteria for this year.
Yes.
Right? Okay. A couple of challenges with that. Number one, among what was approved in January of 2018 was, and where one of the big issues was that if they still had to take the writing sample and the practice test, and the writing sample really is a test, right? That they were supposed to be given practice test. And instead what they were given were maybe 3 practice questions. And that was a major issue. That was not delivered on. So, and the analogy that was used at the time was that if you're taking the SAT, you can get a practice test, a full one. When the teachers are doing unit tests in the class, they often give them practice tests or practice packets. For pretty much every other assessment park, kids can take practice tests. But here for this assessment, they were supposed to get some sort of practice test. Instead, they got only 3 questions that weren't representative of the test. So that's one thing that was missed. Number 2, that wasn't followed through on, they're supposed to be able to see the teacher's recommendation or what was on the teacher's rating scale, just regardless of what they scored. They're supposed to be able to see that. So that way they could have a discussion to say, well, wait a minute, the test was way off here, but the teacher thinks this kid's actually ready. Maybe the kid was having a bad day. You know, maybe that we should be looking back at the straight A's the kid has been making for the past 3 years. And so those were 2 elements that were approved in January of 2018 that are not here and that were not delivered on last year. Comments?
Well, I would disagree with the fact that the teacher rating scale was something that was said that we could see. Neither here nor there. I'm just now inheriting honors. I'm taking it, and as a year 1 look at honors, we weren't prepared to make changes to the honors program so fast. What we wanted to do was take a first step. Remove all of these, all of this testing and all of this placement, and the committee will continue to work through the criteria. There has been discussion around the criteria. There is being discussion had around, do we need to change it? And I think that would be a next step for us.
Right.
So,
okay. It's not really answering my question. What I'm saying is that before we even move to the ultimate goal, which is a wonderful one of reducing the testing and changing the criteria, and that's where I know I want to go, right? We didn't deliver, and I can show you the presentation that was given last year. We didn't deliver on what was promised even last year. A practice test to help prep for the honors test, and where you had more than 3 sample problems, but you had problems that represented what the kid's going to face, because that was still a major criterion. Because the other thing we had changed last year is we changed the weight. So the honors test was weighed a little bit less and grades weighed a little bit more, but the honors test was still a heavy weight. So that's going to affect kids this year. So 1, a practice test, and 2, they were being allowed to see the teacher's rating scale regardless of whether or not of how they did on the practice test. I have the presentation. It's actually online with the meeting minutes as well from last year.
that's fine, but
Okay.
it wasn't something that was under my purview. And so therefore now, since I am now very willing and able to enter into the honors dialogue and begin to look at the criteria and begin to look at what was promised or not promised and presented or not presented, I will be able to take that to the committee and itemize or spell out, here are the things that we've said in the past and where are we today and what do we believe now.
Right, because we're going into that period right now where kids will have to get assessed. Okay. And the board, if there was a change from what we approved last year, the board would have to reapprove it. Going to the feedback, and the feedback's incredible. The committee did a fantastic job. And I want to thank the parents and the teachers who went through that process. There are two things here. One, we've been talking for 2 years about, I see that there is scheduled a map, some sort of map overview for parents. We've been talking about that for a couple of years because most parents don't understand what the MAP scores mean. And so if that's going to be a criterion for their kid getting into something, that's important. Number two.
It's not a criterion for them getting in. We have not changed the criteria.
No, I mean,
it's a
looking at
criteria for exempting.
I understand, for exempting, right, I understand. For exempting from the honors test. Still, if that is a criterion for exemption, then in fact it's a criterion potentially for entrance. One thing I would hope you look at is if there's this correlation between MAP and PARC, and if a kid did well in MAP and didn't do well in PARC, do you necessarily need both? Could you have 3 out of 4 of the criterion versus 4? And I don't expect you to answer that today because that'll be a committee question. But being able to still, alleviate some of the testing and reduce some of the criteria. So instead of 85% higher on MAP, along with meet PARC scale score range, along with the A and core content area, along with teacher's recommendation, maybe it's 3 out of 4 of those, and so you can still eliminate one potential test. That's the only thing I would hope that's also looked at. And the other thing, the last part is look at the timeline. I got the robocall today about the April 9th Edison 6:15 Parent Information Night. Parents have to know further in advance. They should be able to get a note, either an email or sent home, hard copy, and a robocall much further in advance. The night before, people have schedules, they have stuff already planned, and that is not convenient for parents. That's number one. Number two, even though there's going to be a second one April 25th, somebody may already have something planned then. So I would look seriously at how to provide another potential date because it's too short notice. Number two, the MAP Growth Parent Information Night. Will that night, this is my last question, will that night look in depth or provide in depth how MAP scores are derived and what that means for their child? Because once again, most parents are clueless on this. They don't understand what that score means, or when the kid has a score change. Oh, well, my child was over here in Q1 or first semester, and now my child has dropped out of that particular cohort. So helping them understand what the scores actually mean and what score changes may mean is very important.
That's the purpose of that evening.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Is Merklinger?
So I just want to thank all the teachers and parents that were part of these committees. I see a few of my son's teachers back there tonight, and I know they spent a lot of time working not only with the students after school, but then to take the extra time to be on these committees. So I just want you to know that it is greatly appreciated. With the math program, I think I heard you say that there is going to be some consideration for the consistency and continuity between K to 8. And I'm not sure if I heard this correctly, but do both of these math programs, Ready and Reveal, both have a K to 5 program? I was under the impression that one of them or both of them haven't really fully developed a K to 5 program just yet.
And that's exactly the hold for the teachers. One of them, and I can't remember which one, if it's Reveal or Ready.
That's
right. Reveal will be ready in September. So the teachers have asked if they could have the extra year to pilot next year. And so then that's what we've granted.
Okay. And then with the ELA program, I just want to thank you again for just confirming that it's not a new program, that we're just introducing and looking to budget in the additional materials that our teachers definitely need to continue with that program. So thank you for that. In terms of the honors program, what happens if I know we have students that parents decide to decline to take the PARC exam? How would that impact or possibly change the exemption rules for those students?
Sure, and that was a very detailed conversation with the committee. I'm going to ask Ms. Veneziano to talk about the PARC and exemption and where we are with that.
Good evening. So as Mr. Mendez said, that was a big conversation with the committee because we do have a very small amount of students. When we looked at the number of students in currently the 5th, 6th, and 7th grade who do not have park scores, whether they have not taken the park or they've moved into district from perhaps another state without park scores. They are very small amounts. There's about 20 students within each grade, 20 to 25. So we're looking at small amounts. And so that was a consideration. And, you know, we, as a committee, we have lots of ideas and lots of thoughts on the honors program, and but we didn't want to make grandiose changes. We just wanted to see if we could make it better for students. So we are aware of that at this time. The piece would be that students without a park score could definitely take the placement exams. They would move through the criteria. As you know, the normal entrance criteria. But we do know that it was a concern, and it was definitely a conversation, and it's something that we want to consider as we move forward, because I think what I'm hearing is, as a committee, we do want to move forward with some work to, you know, improve the process and the opportunity for students as we move forward into each school year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate, the committee conversation is ongoing. It doesn't stop because, you know, we're giving an update or we've come to at least a decision about exemptions. We will continue our conversation throughout the year to move on to these other areas of conversation.
Great. And then I noticed the one bullet, it said students that are in 6th and 7th grade currently in honors will remain in honors. What about the 8th graders going into high school? How does that impact?
The high school has their own criteria for honors.
Understood. And then the last question I just had was, has there been any thought or consideration for why a student in honors no longer goes into honors? So, for example, my son is placed into honors, but I've taken him out of the class, and it's not anyone's fault or anything, but I just felt for him it was for honors classes was a high course load for him with his other activities. So has any thought been put into or research done in the data as to why students are not continuing in honors?
We can look into that. I think that's a good point. We've had some preliminary conversations, and I think most of them are around just the pressure, right? The pressure of, do I want my child, so from a parent perspective, do I really want to subject my child to the rigors of 4 honors courses, especially in 6th grade? I mean, that's really the big conversation. What pressure might we be putting on our children? Also, students may feel that I just want to focus in on the classes that I really enjoy in terms of honors. If I'm going to spend all of my free time studying, I want to study something that I really like to study. So that's a piece of feedback. Third, activities, right? If a student is in sports, if a student is in the arts, if a student is in something else, they may want to kind of skillfully divvy up their time to say, I really want to focus in on honors here, but not here. I think there are conversations around starting very early, and I think there are conversations with our parents and students around, I don't think this is as important to my child until they get to the 8th or 9th grade. What we need to consider then is there anything in our system that exists that if a student is not in honors in 6th grade, that would determine or impede them from any upper level coursework at the high school. That's what we need to account for. So I think we need to be able to make sure and safeguard that parents and students can make a decision about what the courses are that they want to take in middle school without it negatively impacting or closing them out of advanced coursework at the high school. And I think it's within their right to choose.
Yeah, when seeing those statistics, I went, oh, I hope I'm not negatively impacting by pulling my own child out.
It's a common choice.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that we're taking those things into consideration. And I have to just respectfully disagree with you, Mark. The parent information night actually was out on social media and our website for a few weeks now.
Was.
I've actually, I understand the robocalls and whatnot went out, but I would say I think we probably can market better in some cases, but it was out there. So I just don't want anyone to think that today was the first day it was put out there.
Thank you.
All right. Liaisons, did you have anything on this, or because I forgot to ask, I'm sorry, on Mountaineer Academy?
I have something to say about the middle school honors program. So I was in middle school like 4, 5, 6 years ago, so it was before the honors program was instituted. But I know that when I went to 6th grade in Edison Central 6, that was the first time I met students from other elementary schools than the ones that I went to. And that was the first time students got to interact and see like how different their elementary school experiences were. And most of that can be, or a big part of it can be attributed to the I guess the socioeconomic disparities between the different neighborhoods and different elementary schools. And it got to the point where I was a HAP student, or I guess now I think it's called the Gifted and Talented program. Most kids were from Gregory and Redwood and St. Cloud, and those are the more higher earning neighborhoods. And there were many students from even, let's say, Washington or Hazel. And the students that did come from Washington or Hazel, they saw how much how much of a head start. I myself going to Mount Pleasant, I sort of have a head start for that same reason. So I want to know if there was any kind of consideration also given toward how this setback will affect students by the time, because like you said, Mr. Robertson, sometimes some students, there's different concepts and different math, even math, right? Some concepts and some lessons and subjects are brought up in elementary school, and because it's not kept tabs on, you don't know what's brought up in what school, what teacher brings up what students have what advantage. So I want to know how, and by the time you get to middle school, once you're testing, at that point, your elementary school, those 6 years are done, and you already have that head start or you have that setback. So how does that affect students that when they do get tested, is there any consideration given to the disparities between the elementary schools? And and if there's a way, if it is fair, and if there's a way to make it fair to accommodate for those students as well. And with the new curriculum being revised, I hope that that's also taken into consideration to standardize education and to give more resources to lower income neighborhoods and lower income elementary schools as well. Because even I have friends that let's say when I wanted to go to 6th grade, they were like, they didn't know that we had agenda books in elementary schools. They didn't know that we had a playground to play at recess. They didn't understand that we had all these things. And so like it was jarring for me. I didn't realize that not all students had that. Like not all students had overnight trips in 5th grade. And not all students had the opportunity to even, in 5th grade I had a chance to do what we called a web club, where we got to run online articles for our school. For our elementary school, we got to report on stuff. Not every student had that, and every student had the access to computers and internet and all that things. And even the community support to do well and to excel in school and to even care about school. So that's all I want to bring up.
So, Cecina, you always are extremely, extremely thoughtful in the questions that you're providing to us, and I appreciate them each and every time. When we're thinking about our elementary schools and the disparities that exist, they're very real things that really need to be considered across the district. As you know, with our data, and you've mentioned it before, in some of our schools, like Washington, we have an 82% poverty rate. In some of our other schools, we don't have not even a fraction of that poverty rate, right? It's something that's inherently built into the demographic of our district and where our schools are organized. It's a question that we're going to need to think about as a district, right? How are our schools organized? When we're thinking about how to address them, aside from reorganization, right? When we're thinking about how to address them, we begin by really looking at resources that are the same across the districts. For example, if we look at the literacy resources that we were talking about just now, if teachers have to dig into their own toolkit, if teachers have to find their own resources, if teachers have to do with what they have, and we're not, as a district, providing a consistent framework of resources across all of the schools, then we are going to continue to get the inconsistencies. I think one of our goals with really looking at ELA comprehensively and hearing what the teachers are saying about having the consistency in the resources is going to provide that. A second area is the curriculum development. So when we're thinking about curriculum development, no longer just providing an outline or a guide for skills, which is low-level learning, right? But where we're really thinking about developing a comprehensive curriculum across the content vertically, right, and horizontally, then we can say, let's ensure consistency across the schools. Our goal then would be that regardless of what classroom I walk into, we can see the same thing being taught, while differently, but the same content and the same transfer being expected. I think a third thing that you're talking about is really looking at the impact of poverty on literacy, which is a passion of mine in particular. And so we know that poverty has a dramatic and a cumulative impact on students. It impacts the way we read, it impacts our knowledge base, where we can draw from, it impacts our ability to make connections, it impacts our ability to transfer, it impacts our ability to apply. And so then I think that embedded in our curriculum and embedded in our professional development, we need to specifically look at those strategies for addressing the impact of poverty on literacy. And while that may not apply to all of our student body, it's certainly going to apply to a significant or specific student body. And so then there is where maybe equal is not the same, right? So the strategies I may apply or employ in a school that has higher poverty rates may look different than a school that doesn't, and that should be okay. Right? As long as we're accomplishing the same goals, as long as we're not decreasing rigor, as long as we're not offering a lower level, that's not what I'm talking about, right? What I'm talking about is that I need to supplement all of those strategies. I need to make sure that they're built into the curriculum to address the impact of poverty on literacy. So I think there are multiple strategies, not one silver bullet, right? But multiple strategies that we're going to have to employ consistently and with the same level of push that we need to across all of our schools, but not necessarily the same way. But thank you for your questions.
Thank you. I think there was really a great use of data in there, especially in the honor section with the diagonal movement. And I want to thank you and the committee members and all the parents and teachers who've worked on this and are continuing to do ongoing work on this. And also special thanks to the teachers who've been reaching out to us about the importance of hearing, what the committees are asking for and what's necessary. So very appreciated. I think that's it for this part.
What happened to the development of the grading rubric or grading profile that included a homework policy for 6 to 8? Because that was all about addressing kids in multiple honors courses doing 3 to 5 hours of homework in a night to the point where it was abusive.
We can give an update on where we're headed in that area. This is not a part of this presentation, but I'd be more than happy to come back and let you know what progress is being made. We're having discussions at our middle schools about bringing the grading profile down from the high school to the middle school, and then the following year we'll consider it for the elementary. Again, there is a push-pull dynamic with, do we want to implement changes, do we not want to implement changes? Right now we're trying not to implement too many changes at once, while at the same time really assessing our priorities and saying, what must we do right now? So the profiles are certainly a conversation that's being had. We're looking at those. We are going to be ready to move for the middle school, but for the elementary, that's going to have to come next year because we need to consider developing a revised elementary report card before we can think about a grading profile, right? So there are some things in the system that have to happen simultaneously. At the elementary level, that will have to be the grading profile plus the report card plus the proper assessments to even be able to get the grades for a standards-based report card. So if I develop a standards-based report card and we have those listed, then we need to make sure that we can assess that. So I think those are embedded in our curriculum, they're embedded in our programs, and we'll be able to identify them and move through it.
Thanks.
Okay.
Diversity Job Fair is on April 27th. It's Saturday, the 27th. It will be from 9 to 12 p.m. at the Liberty Gymnasium. We will be looking for qualified, exceptional, diverse candidates for our anticipated vacancies for the 2019-2020 school year. We're excited about that opportunity. Yes.
How many openings do we have for the Diversity Job Fair?
That will depend on the budget, and that will depend on the staffing positions. We will know after May 6th. So far, we've had 38 applications received, or reservations made, if you will, for the Diversity Job Fair. So Mr. Pollack has been out and about. Today he was in Princeton. Tomorrow he's in Montclair. He's been visiting the different schools and the different job fairs that are out and distributing our flyer for the job fair. I think he's been to 5 places so far. So we are definitely communicating and advertising. I'm going to pass out the HIB report. And any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. That's all for the superintendent reports.
All right, thank you. Next up, questions from the public on agenda items only. If you've got something you'd like to share, you can come on up, give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. If you'd like some feedback or you need further information from the administration, there's a clipboard right over there you can put your information on.
Y'all know me. Rachel Gordon, 8 Meeker Street. I just wanted to clarify something about honors as I went to the committee meetings. I think that there is going to be parents besides these 2 parent workshops, which I'm glad to see there was one on there's going to be one on April 25th. I knew about the one on April 8th because I was at the meeting, but I don't know that there was a huge amount of social media, as much as social media were, and I know a lot of our parents are not on social media, and so it's important that we have letters, home, backpacks, and also that to let parents know, when these are happening, like soon, like 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade parents about that, because in order to, if you want to possibly qualify for the exemption, if you're in 4th grade this year for 5th grade next year, because it's confusing, that your child would take the park. So wanted to clarify that. And then also talk about hopefully expanding our transparency in notices to parents, because this honors thing, like I heard officially about it today, and then I know that the refusal letters went up it was a very short time that they went up, and I know that there was a lot going on, so I'm just saying, like, if we can think about that in terms of next year's planning, like when you would put letters out to parents so they have a couple of weeks and not just 1 week turnaround time, would be helpful. Thank you.
Good evening, Michaela Bennett, 35 Old Indian Road, but I'm not really speaking on behalf of myself. I'll share a couple of thoughts. I wanted to speak about the honors program because my son asked me to come up and talk with you about it. So he happens to be one of those unfortunate students who entered just by way of background quickly, entered the school district from a progressive Montessori education. In 3rd grade, he entered St. Cloud and got straight A's in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, sat for the exams and was not eligible for honors in 6th grade. I raised a concern about that. He's in all 4 honors classes. He's made honor roll each quarter. And I don't raise any of that to brag. I raise that to suggest that there's a broken system by which you permit students into honors. He's made honor roll with all A's and 188. So he's clearly appropriate for honors, although your assessment that you're going to utilize this year said he was not. I strongly encourage you to listen to his words of advice. He says that finding out that a test said that he was not eligible for a class, for honors programming, made him feel like he wasn't smart enough. So for the first time, in his academic experience, he heard that he wasn't good enough for something, that he had gotten straight A's and a lot of encouragement from his teachers that basically suggested otherwise. So I would encourage you to consider his advice, which is anyone who wants to try to be in honors is permitted to be in honors if they have the support of their parents and their educators. It's really that simple. You cannot, this is him, not me talking, but I agree with him. You cannot allow a test to predict someone's academic future when you have an educator who assesses that individual as an A and appropriate for honors. It's, tests, there's plenty of data and research about tests that say that they lean in the direction of the affluent and the better prepared. It's the idea, I applaud that you're leaning in the direction of exemptions, but it still is exemptions based on exam taking. And really, if you're going to permit honors in 6th grade, then let any student who thinks that they're ready for honors give it a try. The worst thing that'll happen is they'll decide it's too rigorous and they'll leave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Michael Kessel, 11 Coggins Lane. I was just wondering about the diversity job fair. It says that the West Orange Board of Education is seeking talented multicultural applicants to join our diverse team. Can you let me know what multicultural applicants means?
Any further? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that portion.
Ms. Gordon, regarding letters going home in backpacks, where is she? Oh, absolutely. We will do that, continue to do that, and we will definitely add that 3rd date. We did open the window for the refusal when I had received your email about that, so I appreciate that. Ms. Bennett, I've heard, where's Ms. Bennett? Your son's communication about his thoughts about the honors. With regard to our testing, that's something that we definitely have to continue to look at. With regard to giving students a chance to participate in honors, I happen to agree with that philosophy. It's something, again, that I've mentioned in different settings, and I've been a part of a system that really worked well that way. When students are given the opportunity, they almost always are able to perform. And then when we give them the support, then it is always, right? Again, we have to, as a district, develop that philosophy and decide which way we want to go, and or if it could be a hybrid of the same. Mr. Kessel, the diversity job fair, I'm going to assume that multicultural means people from different cultures. and different ethnicities, as well as the diversity part, which could range from age to different places in our careers. It should encompass all areas of diversity, not just cultural, but it's going to combine and look at all of the areas of diversity.
All right. Next up, personnel. Going one change to personnel at the top of page 4. Peter Torriello, who's retiring. That's going to be effective August 1st instead of July 1st. So just with that change in there, we need a motion for personnel items 1 through 3, please.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion?
Sure. We have Christine Massari retiring after 40 years, and Deborah Sharkey retiring after 41 years. Fantastic. Thank you for your service. And have a great retirement.
And
In addition, we have a few other retirements, right?
Yep.
Jean Archibald,
Oh, wow.
Janine Archibald, Jean Beljour, Lena Filero, and Peter Torriello.
Oh,
And I want to say
27,
congratulations to all of them and thank them for
Yeah.
their service. And my sons both had Miss Sharkey, so good for her. I have to let them know that she's leaving so they can swing by and say goodbye.
Cool.
Congratulations to all.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Calavano?
Mrs. Berklinger?
Yes, with the exception of under item 2.1. I just feel like
B1,
B1
is that what you're saying?
appointments.
2B1.
B1,
2B1.
yeah, 2B1. I'm going to abstain from that. I think having tonight have been the first night that we saw the WOMA, the Mountaineer Academy presentation. I just think that there's some additional questions and thoughts to it that we can consider before appointing someone to the position.
Mr.
For the
Robertson?
rest, yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales?
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai?
Yes.
President Alper?
Yes. Okay, next curriculum and instruction. May I have a motion for items 1 through 3?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
All right. Mr. Calavano. Any discussion? Mr. Calavano.
Mrs. Berklinger?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales?
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai?
Yes.
President Alper?
Yes. Okay, next, motion please for finance, special services, items 1 through 3, and business office, items 1 through 8.
Mr. Alper, if you could please separate out business office, because I'd like to table
Sure.
item 6 on page 8, as we'll be getting that presentation on Wednesday, and I'd like to make my decision after we receive the presentation.
Okay. Do we need to vote to table, or is that just?
So are we going to table it, or we're just going to keep, I need a motion to table it, and then if we're going to
I'll
just
make
table
the
that one
motion to
item.
table.
I'll second.
Business office, page 8, item 6.
Mrs. Berklinger?
This is just on tabling.
It's just
This
tabling.
is just
Oh,
on
just
tabling
tabling.
item number 6.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales?
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai?
Yes.
President Alper?
Yes. Okay, so we can move special services 1 through 3 and business office 1 through 5 and 7 through 8.
Correct.
May I have a motion for that?
I'll motion.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Calavano?
Mrs. Berklinger?
Yes, with the exception of myself under
Business office 1.
business office. Yes, business office 1.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes, abstaining for myself under business office 1.
Mrs. Trigg Scales?
Yes, and likewise, business number 1.
Vice President Mordecai?
Yes.
And Mr. Alper?
Yes, abstaining
President Alper.
for myself from number 1 under business office. May I have a motion for reports, items 1 through 2?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Calavano?
Mrs. Berklinger?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales?
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai?
Yes.
President Alper?
Yes. Okay, next up, petitions and hearings of citizens. If you'd like to speak to the board on any topic, come on up and again, give us your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. And if you need further feedback, you can put your information on that clipboard right there.
Yes, good evening. My name is Harold Maltz, that's M-A-L-T-Z. I reside at 19 Porter Road, which is just a short walk from the high school. I'm here with my wife, Esther, tonight, who's sitting next to me in the front row. In fact, Esther is a graduate of the West Orange system, and she's worked for 21 years in the high school as a substitute teacher. She's fully state certified. She has a teaching degree. Coincidentally, I am a traffic engineer, and I've served participated in the West Orange Public School safety studies in past years. I'm here to discuss the daily salary rates for substitute teachers. My wife has asked me to get up and speak before you because I typically address municipal boards, planning boards, and boards of adjustment. There were going to be other substitutes teachers, all of them fully certified, that were going to be here tonight. However, based on previous board meetings and the noted budgetary difficulties expressed, they felt it was futile to show up, and consequently, they did not. And I find that unfortunate because they should have come anyway to express an opinion. In view of the foregoing, I would like to make the board aware of the substitute salary patterns for the future, the board's future consideration of an increase in the daily rates. I went back, we have my wife's pay stubs stored going back to when she started here in 1998. When she started in 1998 and through August of 2000, the pay was $73 a day. In September of 2000 through January of 2002, it went up $2 to $75 a day. At that time, my wife and I made the same appearance in front of the board at that time, and there were other teachers that showed up, one or two of which still work in the high school. And we made a request to increase the fees, and they did do that. In February of 2002, it went up to $80, and it stayed that way till August of 2003. In September of 2003, extending for 10 years through August of 2013, it was $90, and that was for everybody. There was no differentiation made between a full certification or a substitute certificate. In September of 2013, there was a letter that was submitted to everybody if you wanted to work in the district, at which time they differentiated between a full teacher with a state certification. That went up to $100, but a sub who just held the substitute certificate stayed at $90, and that's what it is through the present. Essentially, a substitute with just a sub certification has not had a raise for the last 15 and a half years. And somebody on my wife's level has not had a raise in almost 6 years.
Thank you.
Oh, geez. Didn't get through. I was just about done.
If you have more, come up and share after.
Okay.
Show it.
I probably had about another half minute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Rachel Gordon, 8 Meeker Street. My friend Nicole Rufo couldn't be here tonight, but she wanted me to ask, first, when will you be forming the Allergy Awareness Committee? And second, when will the application to be on the committee be available online? And then for myself, in extending the conversation, I would very much like to be a part of that honors conversation about the philosophy and having more opportunities for more people to, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Sayre. I've been a social studies teacher here at the high school for the past 20 years. I still love teaching here, by the way, and that's for 2 obvious main reasons. First, our wonderful students, of course, and second, our great professional colleagues. The second of these reasons is what has prompted me to come to tonight's meeting to speak. We just heard last week that the position of our photocopy clerk, Mary Giovine, is in danger of being cut for next year. So I just wanted to offer from a teacher's point of view and to hopefully, shed some light on what she does for us, how important she is to us. Mary Giovine is one of the hardest most hardworking, dependable, and helpful, and always nice individuals who works in the high school. She's always busy, yet she always finds a way to get everything done. This includes, on a very regular basis, stopping what she is doing to get teachers the emergency copies that we need, because the copy machines in the teachers' workrooms are so often out of service. These copy machines seem to be out of service at least every other week, and in bad weeks, they're out for the whole week. Mary is always there to bail us out when this happens. But also, on a daily basis, Mary saves teachers valuable time doing our copies, allowing us to put more of our efforts into planning and teaching and less into fighting with the machines. In addition to the work that she does to directly support our teaching, Mary also does all kinds of work for the various school administrators and programs, including pamphlets for our small learning communities, flyers and posters for school events, high school and district mailings, and I don't even know what else. But I do know that she always seems to have some kind of major task that she's doing for somebody in the district. She always does it on time, efficiently, and carefully. She's a highly efficient, hardworking, and dependable member of the high school staff who does a job that makes all the educators in the building more productive. In addition, she's also one of the kindest and most helpful people on the staff, and that goes a long way towards cementing a strong school community. And this is who Mary Giovine has been for the district and for the high school for the past 18 or 19 years. So my question is, why would we want to lose such a person? Please reconsider eliminating this position. Please keep Mary here, adding to our productivity and to the high quality of our school community. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cami Silo, and I have been a teacher here for the past 5.5 years, so not as long as Mr. Sayer. And I couldn't speak more highly of Mary Giovine, which is also why I'm here, than Dave. So in the interest of time and not to repeat everything he stated, I want to talk about the importance, again from a teacher's perspective, of paper. So copies, paper, are essential for instruction and learning. Specifically, handwriting is a crucial skill. And as a matter of fact, now that we have the mandatory SAT prep course here at the high school, the strategies that we've also adopted here include the physical practice of annotating and highlighting. And those are skills that are not only used in the SAT prep course, but across the board, you know, for all subjects. In addition to that, New Republic magazine actually has a recent study that 92% of students claim that they're able to concentrate better with printed text. And that, according to the Vision Council, prolonged digital reading causes eye strain and headache. So just something else, you know, to consider. And, you know, we all love technology and we are embracing it, and we do make an effort to use less paper. But as a district, you know, we do encounter some problems with the Chromebooks. You know, obviously sometimes students don't have them, or they forget their chargers at home, and then if they're expected to use them all day long, they're not charged. Also, as far as Wi-Fi can be spotty, you know, and inconsistent. And so for those reasons, you know, paper is extremely important, and Mary is a crucial part of helping us to have all of these paper copies that we need, you know, so that we can have time to help the students, work with them, and lesson plan and grade. So we just wanted to follow up and, you know, tell you about the importance of Mary and the position, the paper. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Third person to come up and speak about this. Tom Gargiulo. I'm a math teacher at the high school. I've been a teacher here for 20 years. I'm here. I live an hour away. I'm here because of Mary. I'm also here because I wanted to provide you with some data as to why we think Mary's position should be kept. So this was a Google Form survey that we managed to get over 135 responses in one day, less than a day, half a day. That's how important Mary is to our school and how people feel about her. So just a couple of highlights from this. Almost 90% use Mary's copy services. All right, almost 100% of the people who use it rank it as high quality and effective and quick. Basically, 84% of respondents said these paper copies are essential to their instruction. Essential, okay, not like something that's frivolous. Most people reported 1 to 3 hours per week savings time from using Mary's copy services. 135 responses at that. That's up to 400 man hours right there. And that's just one day. We didn't get everybody to respond because we only have 1 day turnaround to get this to you guys. So I'm sure it's even more than that. That's time that's spent on instruction. That's time that's spent on grading, feedback, prepping, all the things that add to the value of instruction in our school. And it comes from her. She's a huge resource to us. Some of the things that I just want to highlight real quickly that you can't do on Chromebooks, that you need to do on paper, that Mary provides for us. Document-based questions, annotating texts, design assignments, sheet music, focused reading, graphic organizers, bound books, guidance mailings, student assistant counselor pamphlets, nursing resources. Math in general was very, very difficult without paper. Mary provides that for us. Theater scripts, SAT practice tests, AP mock exams, handwriting skills. We have a great Air Force Junior ROTC program here. All of those are required to have cadet manuals, paper manuals, on them at all times. I mean, if the guy had to do that himself, it would take him, it's like a 140-page manual. It's just such a waste of time when he could be working with cadets. And this is what Mary provides for us. This is the service she provides. Not only that, like most of the people, in the surveys, when attesting their character, words like consummate professional, hardworking, reliable, kind, efficient, supportive, great asset, all this stuff, all these words were used to describe Mary. She's a phenomenal asset to this district. Really, please reconsider, removing this position and keeping Mary in there. She really provides a valuable service. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Adam Kramer, 20 Moran Road. I'm not going to really discuss my concerns about the budget. I'll save that for May 6th. I've spent a lot of time looking at the state report card. There hasn't been much discussion in this board or in the community about that, but I think there's a lot of things in there that are very informative, both good and bad. There's a lot of good in there. It says a lot of good things about the district. St. Cloud's doing phenomenally. Your elementary schools are doing well. St. Cloud's was rated in the 90s. Washington, at the low end of the middle of the elementary schools, got in the high 50s. And when you consider that that's a school where you have a tremendous amount of your student population qualifying for free and reduced lunch, and when you have a tremendous amount of an ESL population, that's actually pretty impressive. So it's telling us that you guys are doing a pretty good job with elementary schools. However, when you look at the data for Edison and for the middle schools, it's not as nice a picture. So that leads me to the question, which goes back about, I think 7 or 8 years at this point, when we went to a Central 6. At the time, I objected. I thought it was a mistake because I'm of the opinion that a lot of tweens are not as mature as we think they are, and a lot of the tweens need that extra year in a grammar school setting to mature and nurture before they can make the transition to middle school. I also know that middle schools are a lot more expensive to operate than elementary schools, that structuring Edison, you've increased your bus costs over neighborhood schools. And I'm wondering, from both an economics and also a performance and educational outcome, Why do we keep doubling down year after year after year on this Central 6 model? And is it necessarily the best from a whole variety of reasons to continue that in this direction? And maybe there should be some serious reconsideration. I personally would like to see going to a complete K-6 system, make Edison Elementary rezone. I'm a big believer in neighborhood schools that nurture, and I'm a big believer that in a lot of cases, tweens may not be ready for that transition to middle school. And maybe you should consider it and look into that as a possibility to save money, but more importantly, get better educational outcomes.
Thank you. Mr. Miles, I have to apologize. When I said to come up, I meant we can't let you speak twice because then we'd have to do that at all meetings for all people. I meant when the meeting was over, come on up and talk to us or email us because I think we're all interested, but I can't, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that.
Good evening. Chris Silverio, 9 Beechwood Terrace. I really just wanted to come here today to really acknowledge an event that we had here this past Saturday. I don't think a lot of people knew about. We held our first big track event. I know Mr. Robertson, I don't know if you knew or you were just here by chance. But yeah, we held it. He supported us at the concession stand. I'm one of the parents helping out. It was great. I wanted to say thank you to all the coaches and the staff and the high school for letting us have it. It's not really our event. It's actually something that Montclair asked us as a favor to do for them. But I just wanted to get on record as saying, you know, we did it. We got it done. A lot of people didn't think we should have had it, and a lot of people didn't think we should or we would get it done. We got it done. There was a write-up on NJ.com about how well we did, so I want to acknowledge that. And then just the second thing going forward, I think a big issue was why didn't everyone know about it? The track team, their schedule, I believe, is not even on the high school site. Every other spring sport is on there except for the track team, and I don't know why. So there are a lot of things that go with that. And then, you know, the other thing too is that these events are big fundraisers for the team. There's over 120 boys and girls on the team. We encompass everybody. You know, I think from the last 7 or 8 years, I think 4 of the valedictorians were on the team. We had that girls picture last year, the ones that went to the Ivy Leagues. There was at least 4 of those girls from last year that were on the team. So this is a big part of the school, and I just kind of wanted to see what we could do to make things better in terms of communication with the community, and also just kind of how it's run internally. I'm not going to say anything specific, but I do want to have that looked into and really, you know, over the next few months especially, really, you know, get into more detail about what needs to be changed and what can be made better. Thank you.
Michaela Bennett, 35 Old Indian Road. So I wanted to go back to something that Mark had talked about. I forgot to mention it. I think I was out of time anyway. The honors testing, the process, specifically that students would know or have seen or experienced what they were going to be tested on. I don't want you to misunderstand. My son is not a bad test taker. He scores very high on the PARCC. He scores very high on the other aptitude testing. It was that in math in particular and in all of the subjects, there was information or tested information that he hadn't seen yet because he wasn't in HAP. So just to clarify that, I think that's part of the flaw. So if you're going to use the same process this year, at a minimum, I join Mr. Robertson in requesting that you make sure that students are prepared for what they're going to see on a test. I wanted to raise the closed session of your meetings. You last year, as a board, changed your process so that you identify what you will be discussing in closed session. So, and I think I thanked you for that last year. But one of the things that got raised but not addressed was the fact that at some point those closed minutes need to be made available to the public. And we had asked when they were going to be made available, and we haven't gotten an answer, nor are they available. But I think at some point they have to become available. I think you can redact, obviously, for the issues that need to be redacted. But in large part, the public is entitled to know what you discussed privately at a later date. And then the last thing that I wanted to raise with you is tuition reimbursement for programs that are not permissible, and then mischaracterizing them as programs that are to the benefit of the district. I mean, I don't need to raise beyond just the point that it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be mischaracterized and permitted if it's not a course of study that, even broadly defined, benefits the district. And, we shouldn't mischaracterize it as such. Thank you.
Michael Kessel, 11 Coggins Lane. First, I'd like to warn the board that multiculturalism in the context of hiring is a code word for non-whites, so you might want to think about restructuring your advertising. So what's the difference between death and taxes? The Board of Education doesn't make death worse every year. If you take a look at the budget, I looked at the budget. You're not using the additional aid for the state for property tax from the state for property tax relief, but for revenue towards the budget. The budget goals that you set forth on November 20th, of course, it's the last one because the taxpayers are an afterthought. Minimize the impact on taxpayers while maximizing the efficient use of tax dollars. You are ignoring the taxpayers as a constituency by ignoring the clear intent of the legislature and the governor in the local fair share law. The governor said on January 18, 2019, that school aid was cut by more than $1 billion per year over 8 long years, leaving property taxpayers to make up for the losses. He said it comes down to this: the most effective property tax relief program is reinvesting in our public schools by the state so that local taxpayers shoulder less of the burden. The state senator who sponsored the bill also said the annual increase will provide needed property tax relief in some towns. The governor also said that the average percentage of tax burden on New Jersey residents for schools is 53%. We're over 60% here. We have one of the highest per pupil expenses in the state with really no good reason for it. The recent State Department of Education rankings also show the middle schools and the high school below a score of 50%, therefore below average. You refuse to engage in out-of-the-box thinking. You take the box, you fill it up with money, and then spend it. Let's take a simple metric. You budgeted revenue 6 years ago was $144 million. It's now $166 million. That's a 15% increase in 6 years. Inflation has only increased 8.5% over those 6 years. What if we had been one of those urban towns that is now losing state aid due to the new formula? You could have taken that mindset. That would have forced you to really think about what is necessary to this district and still been able to act according to the intent of the local fair share law. Each year you set a new floor without consideration to keeping the budget in a reasonable range. But I'm not really surprised you refused to give us the money. Last year there was a $3.5 million refund from the state, but you saw a pile of money there, you couldn't keep your hands off it, and you kept $500,000. Our home values are declining because of the huge tax burden. But that's no threat to you because even if we appeal our taxes, any refund gets taken out of the town budget, not yours. Let's look at the optics. In terms of the federal tax law, we couldn't deduct our taxes, but you could have looked at it and given the refund to us as part of that, and you didn't look at that. You could have made it up to us. The bubble of continued unrestrained spending will burst at some point. There won't be a taxpayer base nor state government to save it. You need to hold the tax increase to zero this year. Thank you.
Good evening. Tony Edelstein, 50 Davie Drive. I'm a teacher here at the high school. I'm also here to express my support for Mary Giavine and for maintaining her position. It seems to us here in the high school that the elimination of her position is a harbinger of an attempt to go paperless. I think certainly It's laudable to, to try to reduce our use of paper, but again, I think for people who are not in the classroom, I think people have some unrealistic expectations or understandings about how easy it is to go paperless in the classroom environment. As people before me said, we do try to teach students skills of annotating, highlighting. That's one example. You may not be aware, but teachers have been giving, or until recently had been giving tests and quizzes via Google Forms. Some had. Our very bright students managed to go online and find a hack that allowed them to then access the teacher's answer key. So I've been told that may be being addressed by the tech department. But these are some of the, some of the pitfalls of technology, not to mention the distractions that are available to the students when they do have the Chromebooks in front of them. Certainly there is a teacher management aspect to trying to control that, but obviously in classrooms of 20 or more students, it is extremely hard to monitor that they're not watching NBA highlights and playing Fortnite and other things like that. So I think many people who aren't in education think that going paperless is quite easy and seamless, but I think the reality is that it's not, that we do need a balance of it, and as my colleagues have said, Mary provides an invaluable service. I'm an in-class resource teacher. Several of the teachers I teach with use unit packets, 30 to 40 page unit packets, 10 to 13 packets a year, for their units, for 100 plus students. If the individual teacher had to spend the time to make those kinds of packets, obviously the time lost plus the lines that copy machines would be unbelievable. So we do urge you to retain Mary's position and certainly retain her as the person doing it. Thank you.
Seeing none. There were some people who came up during agenda comment to make a comment on something that was on the agenda and then came back for general open comment at the end. Thank you. Should be about 10 minutes, I think, and we'll be done.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see where we begin. Ms. Rufo, by way of Ms. Gordon, I think. So the Allergy Awareness Committee is on its way. We've started posting our committee work online, including the sign-up sheets. I believe the allergy awareness, I was informed today, would go up this week. And so that will be on our website shortly. Mr. Sayer and Ms. Silo and Mr. Gargiulo and Mr. Edelstein, and to all of the teachers who are warmly advocating for your colleague, as well as the need for the paper and for the copies. Budget is always a difficult time. When we're thinking about positions, especially our colleagues, that's even more difficult. We are preparing a finalized budget for May 6th, and as we do that, the board can and I will consider where, if and when we can reinstate any of the positions that were there. While I can't promise that will be the decision or the direction, I can certainly say that we will take every comment today into definite consideration, and we will look for it. And again, I think that's the best that I'm able to promise today. Okay? I'm sorry, I just have to go through my notes. Mr. Kramer, thank you for acknowledging the work that our teachers are doing in our elementary schools, and how even our most neediest schools are also beginning to really show some improvement and push against some of the things that are posing a risk for our students, including poverty. I also agree that our elementary schools are doing a fantastic job at moving toward goals and making sure that students are progressing. We understand that we have a lot of work to go, but we do see the growth. As far as our middle schools and Edison, I think, again, that comes back to a bigger conversation that needs to be had. Transitions and multiple transitions between grades always pose a concern. And so then when we're thinking about 5th grade students moving into 6th grade for 1 year, that poses a concern. To make a second transition from 6th into 7th, that poses a second concern. Having to be there for 2 years and pose yet another transition is something that definitely has to be considered as we're moving forward and looking at the performance of our middle schools as an option in our thinking. I don't pretend to know what the response would be. I heard your suggestion of K-6. I'm sure the community will have many different suggestions as we enter into those types of conversations, but I do agree with you that the multiple transitions and being in a middle school for 1 year does pose a stressor on academic achievement. Mr. Maltese, I'm not prepared to answer anything around substitute pay, except for the fact that we would have to analyze that. I'm hearing it. I have all of your data. I have the payment and the salaries from 1998 to present as you've shared it. I'm hearing it for the first time. I will take that back. We'll take a look at that and see. I'm sorry, Mr. Malt. Okay, Mr. Maltz, I apologize. We'll take that back. We'll look at it. We do have a budget workshop coming up. We'll be able to discuss it with the board and bring some data with us to confirm what has been shared today. So I appreciate, again, the thoughtfulness with laying it out for us so that we're clear on what's happening with our substitutes. All members of our staff are important, and so we need to make sure that we're able to do the best we can. Mr. Silvino, is that Silverio? So I heard that the track event was very, very successful, and that there were over, if I'm correct, 48 different schools or districts that came and participated, and that you raised a whole lot of fundraising, and that goes to the track team. So that's also wonderful when we're able to have fundraising events that go directly to our students and to our teams. I think that's where it belongs. And so as you move forward in that process, I'm eager to hear what are the feedback that you would offer for things to continue to improve as we hold fundraising events or as we do anything that would positively provide for our students as they compete. So thank you. Ms. Bennett, with regard to honors testing and preparing the students, again, it is something that we will look into. Where are we with minutes? Okay, we'll look into the minutes. And I also heard the comment about the tuition reimbursement. As far as mine goes, it was presented clearly to the board, to the superintendent, and to the county superintendent, which approved it. So I don't believe it was mischaracterized. With regard to reimbursement for this year, I did not even submit for the second part of the reimbursement because there was not a superintendent to approve it, and I didn't think it was right for me to approve my own. So while I did apply for the fall, I certainly did not apply for the spring because, again, I would have thought it not appropriate to approve my own. And Mr. Castle, thank you for your comment on multicultural. We'll take that into consideration as we develop our flyers. I think the other piece was budget goals.
Yeah, you know, it's tough because after years of being, oh, that's fine, sorry. You know, it's tough because after years of being funded at, you know, literally 30 cents on the dollar essentially for, you know, years and years, the state finally started to begin the slow process of making good on what was owed to districts like West Orange. You know, we joined the Fair Funding Action Coalition and did a lot of work on that with those folks, and thankfully S2 passed, and in that very first year we very controversially made the decision that, you know, lots of districts across the state had suffered and let their students suffer for decades, honestly decades, and said, no, we can't do Chromebooks, we can't do this, we can't do that, because they just couldn't with their tax base. And in West Orange, we kept going to the taxpayers again and again, and our taxpayers were very generous for a very long time, and our students did not go without. And in that first year, we gave back as much of that money as we were able to, $3 million out of $3.5 million. And the year before that, I think there was a give back as well, a smaller give back of some additional aid. That's true. But we thought it was important in that first year to give back as much as we could because of the way the taxpayers had given all that time. But, you know, given the annual percentage increases that we have no choice, things like insurance benefits, which increase by more than the rate of inflation every year, there's only so much we can do. And it is unfortunately and sadly not yet at this point feasible to return additional money to taxpayers every year. It was also the case that last year's money came in July, when the state, June or July, when the state budget process got finalized after school district budgets were done. So that money that came in then was really after the entire budget process was done. So it was much more the equivalent of tripping over a $20 bill on the sidewalk and saying, oh, I can, you know, I don't need this because I've already done all my budgeting for the year, as opposed to this year when we know that the money, there's not going to be additional money in the summer this year, barring some sort of unexpected miracle, which leaves us in a place where that the money that we know about now in April is all the money there is, and it's just not feasible to do that sort of budgeting, unfortunately. So that's all on that. I think otherwise I would echo just about everything else you said. With that, it's time for board reports, and you can add if you'd like.
If I may add to that, the other part of your question was about the budget goals. Generally, we try to make sure that our goals are aligned with what our mission is. Our mission is student achievement and safety. So the first goal was safety, if I recall the budget goals. Our first goal was safety, and talking about security audit and the safety of our students and our faculty and our premises. And I believe the second goal was student achievement, because that is our mission. And if you don't have safe students, how can you have student achievement? So that's why those are our first and second goal. It's not that the taxpayers is an afterthought, but we try to abide and align with our mission statement, which is student achievement and safety.
Quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
To Mr. Silvarios. That was an incredible event with the 48 schools, and as I talked to different students and different coaches, and the feedback I got across the board was, wow, great campus, you all are treating us great, it's having a great time. It was such a positive, amazing event to just be in the middle of it. And, you know, Coach Jackson, Coach Blake, all the coaches, you put in a lot of work, and I think the big takeaway from what you're giving to us is we didn't treat this at the same, promote it in the way that we promoted so many other things. It needed to be on the calendar, for the main calendar, because it was a massive event, as well as for the high school calendar. It needed to be up at the website. It needed to be prominent at the website. I didn't see it there. It needed to be prominent in social media. It should have been heavily promoted, and it was not. And I think that's a coordination and internal communication thing, where if we have something big like that coming up, we need to give it the resources it's due to get the word out and to pump it up and to get as many people, give it the attention it's due. Thanks.
Okay. Board member reports. Ms. Triggs-Gals.
Okay. Ms. Sherry Ritter shared an email with us, and I just want to share it with the public. It was a long email, but it was one demonstrating her pride for her fellow colleagues. So The Educator Collaborative is a global online K-12 literacy think tank where leading educators share pedagogy and share innovative collaborative projects. And our own tech integration specialist, Diana DaCosta, hosted 3 Saturday viewing parties for our teachers. And 3 of the 18 presentations were hosted by West Orange teachers, Tanya Tomasi, Carrie Orange, and Amy Pacifico. And 5 of our teachers presented the closing keynote, Laura Amendola, Annie Navarro, Stephanie Ross, Rebecca Giacopelli, and Diana Ferrara. And their students in grades 1, 4, and 5 also accompanied their teachers. And this peer recognition is really quite an honor and an indicator of the quality of work that our outstanding educators here in West Orange are providing our students. And did you hear me say it was on a Saturday? So we are extremely proud of those teachers. And I wanted to also report that I'm delighted to be a member of the policy committee along with Ms. Mordecai and our acting superintendent. And we have recommended to the board that we contract with a group called Strauss Esme Associates, LLP, as consultants to work with our district officials to develop a policy and regulation manual. And I must say, in my very short time on the board, this is sorely needed. Strauss Esme works with 530 out of the 600-plus districts in the state. So my question is like, where's West Orange been? But we're getting on the map now. And a lot of the prominent school districts in Essex County. So again, I'm just very happy that we have made this efficiency move to the 21st century and using the most comprehensive internet-based policy and regulation support in the industry. So very happy about that for the board and the district. And then I just wanted to say, Mamma Mia, what a weekend in our town. Kudos to all involved in the excellent rendition of one of my favorites, Mamma Mia. I was at the high school on Saturday morning, and what a beehive of activity, including the 2019 drill competition, the Essex County track meet that I didn't even know was happening, but I couldn't believe I was driving down the street, and it was just a sea of buses. And I started reading along the buses from all over. We had students here on our campus from all over. And then there was a lacrosse game, I think, going on at the same time. So really, really a wonderful day at the West Orange campus, and what a weekend in West Orange. Thank you.
Sure. All right. I'd like to piggyback on some of what my colleague has said. Yes, it's been a pleasure so far working with you on the policy committee. And policy over the years has been very overwhelming, and we have quite a bit to do. So approving Strauss Esme tonight was a very good move. And also, Mamma Mia to you too. I also attended on Saturday. Our students are so talented. It would pretty much, I don't think I counted 20 empty seats in that auditorium.
Yeah.
Really, really great turnout. And even when they had the intermission, you couldn't move, in the lobby area because you're just such a great attendance. So it's great that the community comes out every year to support our students in all their fine and performing arts activities. For track and field, I know the first time for myself hearing about it is when you came to the microphone a couple weeks ago to let the board know that we were hosting on behalf of Montclair. I'm sorry I was not able to get to that event. On Saturday morning, I was in Harlan, New Jersey, attending the Jostens Renaissance Regional Conference, which is a high school redesign course. And I was there from 8:30 a.m. till 2 p.m. And wow, there was so much great information. I brought back a lot of things that I gave to Acting Superintendent Menendez. But just some of the things I learned, they talked about branding and branding your high school with graduation items. The speaker, Dr. Campbell, talked about everywhere throughout his high school, there's a graduation cap or a picture of a graduation cap, or a gown, or the ceiling tiles in the cafeteria is painted with logos from various Ivy League colleges, or logos of the military. And I thought, what a wonderful idea. They also have the students paint, the seniors paint their parking lot spots, you know, just to let them have ownership in the building and pride and everything. There were just so many great ideas. I'm going to write up a full report for my colleagues at some point. But the one thing I did take away from it, he talked a lot about social emotional learning. I said, oh, we're looking at that in West Orange. He talked about spec ed proms, and I said, we already do that. So a lot of the things they talked about, we already do, but in piecemeal, it's not a formal thing. So hopefully we can have him come and speak at the high school to our faculty and staff. He was just so charged. There were speakers everywhere, you know, 300 students, I'd say about 15 board members and about 100 faculty. And the gym was just so active and energized, and he was just jumping all over the place. And by the end, everybody was crying, you know, hearing those stories of students who have overcome many obstacles and still graduated. And he talked about his first day as a teacher wearing a suit and realizing that in a suit he would not connect with students. And so after that, the very next day, he was in his jeans and his T-shirt, because he said if he couldn't connect with the students, how could he teach them? How could he reach them? He was just, you know Dr. Campbell. Oh my God, he was so amazing. So amazing. And the teachers are gone now, but I brought back a lot of buttons. There are a lot of buttons talking about why am I a teacher? I'm a rock star educator, and I handed them out in the back earlier for some of the teachers. It was such a good feeling. And it brings me to, I guess, recall a few years ago, we have not had an Educator of the Year through the West Orange Public Schools in a long time. I know the Chamber of Commerce did something, and other, you know, groups did something, but we should definitely go back to doing that. I don't really recall why we stopped, but we should make sure that our faculty and staff know that we appreciate them and that they're doing an amazing job. But for them, our graduation rate wouldn't be 91% this year because they've worked really hard. So that's all I have. Oh, one more comment. Mary Giovine, I know her very well. We were parents together from kindergarten through high school, and our kids are friends, so heartbreaking to hear that. And as a board member, yes, I didn't know. Yeah, as a board member, I had not been told, so really heartbreaking to hear that. Ms. Gordon is gone, but I know I had mentioned a comment before that the Allergy Awareness Committee might be able to go under our Health and Wellness Committee, since it's the same thing. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. That committee is already in place. I know Mr. Melendez used to be the chair. I think it's now somebody at the high school. So if there's already a nurse, instead of having the nurse on the health committee and then putting that nurse or another nurse on the allergy committee, if it goes under the umbrella of the Health and Wellness Committee, that we could actually get that started, you know, a lot quicker than if we had to start over from scratch. So that's all I have, Mr. President.
All right. Mr. Robertson, anything further?
Mamma mia, baby. First of all, Gabby Florendo and Danielle Russell really blew it out. I mean, it was amazing. And I had fun dancing in the aisles, yes. And I just want to say it was a privilege even watching these young ladies growing up and really coming into their fruition, amazing talents. And we have so many talented seniors that will be leaving us. Ruben Alexander, Litzy Reyes Polanco, Jovan, Melanie Chamorro, Kimberly Goldberg. And I just want to congratulate all of them. It was an amazing performance. I spent an 18-hour day with a 1-hour break around West Orange High Stuff because we started with the ROTC. So my son we were up at 3:45 in the morning. My son was there by 5 o'clock, and I was running back and forth throughout the day. And just want to say that we were hosting 10 schools. So in all, there were 59, including the lacrosse tournament, 59 schools on West Orange's campus. We were the center of the student activity universe in New Jersey that day. And the ROTC drill competition was amazing. It was very well run. Vanessa Letman led it for our cadets, but there was the teamwork throughout the day just to keep everybody hydrated and organized, and helping people who got lost in our building was great. And I got to say that our support for all these multiple events, from custodians and buildings and grounds folks, as well as our amazing coaches and the major and Chief Thurston, and everyone was absolutely fantastic in covering all these events. To note, Mr. Camissa from West Point, a key West Point recruiter, told me that we equaled, we were the tops in the state, equaling one other school in terms of acceptances to West Point, and that was a military school. And we topped in terms of early acceptances without congressional interviews with 3. And I said, well, why do you think that is? He said, Mark, West Orange is putting out high-level, multi-talented, well-rounded students. I said, talk to me about it. He says, well, it's not just ROTC. He said, you're getting a kid who's at ROTC, who's taken honors and AP courses in the high school and doing well, who are exceptional athletes, who are Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, who are, doing the arts. They're they're competing and involved in so many different areas and excelling at a high level in all of them. And he says, we have an abundance of them. And he said, when you had a student last year that got a $150,000 full ride to UCLA, he said, that's rare. He's like one of a few in the whole country, and it was West Orange High. So he said, we have something very special here, not only a distinguished unit, but it's how we're churning out well-rounded, high-level students. And that's teamwork from faculty and staff and everybody, and coaches working together. And he said that, we have a lot more opportunities. He's actually sending me an email and some other things we may want to take advantage of, and he wants to make sure our students are taking advantage of all the potential scholarship opportunities that are out there. Real quick, our science program, Liberty Middle School's Invention Convention had nearly 500 student exhibits, and the place was jam-packed, wall-to-wall with families. And what was amazing is that it was a celebration of innovation and creativity. Everyone had to come up with some kind of invention. So this one young lady had a hairbrush that takes your static electricity from your hair and charges batteries. Really breakthrough stuff here. And there was environmentalism going. There was all sorts of experiments. And these kids were excited, not just about their own. They were going exhibit to exhibit. They were excited about other children's work. The parents were excited, like, wow, this is happening, bringing science to life, making it relevant, making it experiential, and really challenging these kids to invent something. This was brilliant, and it says that we're really delivering against our supervisor, Stephanie Soriano, Principal Klimt, my daughter's science teacher, Mr. Goldberg, I love. They were challenging these kids at a high level, and the kids were having fun. They were having a lot of fun with it, and the parents loved it. We're delivering against next generation science. That's all I can say, and a lot of people deserve credit for that. Went to the girls' basketball banquet. It'll be very brief. It was an amazing celebration. We're losing a lot of senior talent, but we have a lot of young talent coming up, including Kylie. But Maya topped 1,700 career points, over 1,000 rebounds, led the team in assist, points, and rebounds. So, and I know she's off to University of Pittsburgh, to Penn State on full scholarship. But we had a lot of talent, a lot of great kids, and several of them are going off to play at other schools. Want to congratulate them. What was that? This last? Yep, that was it. It was amazing West Orange weekend and week.
Fantastic. Ms. Burkmunger?
Sure. So April is Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month, and I just bring that up because there's been some really startling statistics that were put out there, and I just want our students to know that there are resources should they ever encounter something of that nature. The RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, does offer a hotline that's available 24/7 that's confidential. I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but every 9 minutes, Child Protective Services substantiates or finds evidence of a claim of child abuse. which to me is really upsetting in itself. So I just want to make sure our students know that the number to reach for the National Sexual Assault Hotline is 1-800-656-4673. And I bring that up because students and children that experience this type of assault or abuse are 3 times more likely to experience major depressive episodes. They're more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. And that kind of brings me to there's a fundraiser this Friday at the Orange Elks being hosted by 2 West Orange alumni that are comedians. It's Comedian Night to Fight Opioid Abuse. And that's Kevin Garifo and Rich McDonald, who's also an officer in our West Orange Police Department. So I would love to see a lot of West Orange support out there for them for something that is important to bring awareness to. But with that, I also just wanted to highlight some of the positive things that were going on in West Orange. For the second year, our public schools were named the 2019 Best Communities for Music Education by the National Association of Music Merchants. The St. Cloud Jaguar Jog is this Thursday at 1 p.m. Our volleyball team, the boys won a few of their first 2 games, so that's a brand new program that we have here in district, and so I just wanted to highlight them. Our girls lacrosse program is also doing very well. Our Redwood Student Council, congratulations. They collected 45 pounds of crayons for the Crayon Initiative, which takes crayons and melts them down and gives them to communities that are in need. Then the New Jersey School Boards Association is holding a mental health conference tomorrow. Unfortunately, I can't go because I have jury duty, but I did ask that they send me materials, and I'm looking forward to getting some information about that, seeing that mental health is something that we want to bring awareness to, and Mental Illness Awareness Month is in May. And for those of you that are not familiar, I'm not sure if you know, but did you know that West Orange High School offers the World of Wall Street, Elements of Dance, and the 3D Design Artwork courses? And this Thursday, there is an orientation night for 8th graders at 6:30 and their parents, where you can meet the faculty and learn about the curriculum, and look forward to hearing about that. But I also want to point out, and because track and field is near and dear to my heart, it's what I did in high school, and it's what I went to college as a scholar athlete for. I'm glad that we got to host and help out Montclair, but I would love to see West Orange High be able to hold our own relay event. They are a huge part of track and field. It brings a lot of schools together, and it's a great fundraiser for teams. So I would love to see our track and field team have that opportunity, and maybe work with our athletic director on bringing that to West Orange High. But in addition to that, I think one of the things that we saw this past weekend was that West Orange High School is a hub of activities, and any day of the week that if you come by the West Orange High campus, there are a ton of activities going on down at Degnan Field, on the lacrosse soccer field, on the baseball field, on Soriano Stadium. There's always something going on in or around the school, and so I just want to highlight that our students and our faculty and our town are doing a great job of ensuring that our students have activities and that everyone's being involved and included. So just would like to see continued support for all those programs.
Go ahead. What?
I have one more thing. Mr. Mendez, can you give an update on the Hazel principal search and also on the bubble? I forgot to ask earlier.
The Hazel principal search is on the way, and I don't remember the dates off the top of my head. They are at the end of this month in April. The first and second round interviews will begin. The committees have been notified. The questions have been developed, and so now our committee is scheduled. I can email you the dates tomorrow. I do have them.
Great.
But they are this month, after the break.
The bubble interior, we awarded a contract to a company who is now filing permits and submitting all their shop transmittals. We're hoping that they can get here next week when we have spring break so they can start bringing in all their materials. At the same time, we had a job meeting, and we expressed the number one concern is to get the weight room back into the bubble. So we contacted a company to bring the equipment from where it is now into the bubble. We're waiting for a date from them on when they're available. We're hoping that's also going to happen next week. So we're trying to coordinate this so we can get the weight room equipment in there with the contractor starting work at the same time.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Just a reminder that the new traffic pattern goes into effect on April 22nd, which is after spring break next week.
All right. I only had a couple quick things aside from the play, which I think we've covered. That was fantastic. Friday night, I was not at the play because Sandra and I were at Edison for their Tricky Tray, and before and after at Oak Barrel for the baseball fundraiser, both great events. Kathy Rooney really did a fantastic job with Edison's Tricky Tray, and she should get a shout out for that. So I think with that, our next board meeting will be held at 8 p.m. on May 6th at Liberty, because that's the budget hearing.
Don't bang the gavel just yet, but anyone who's doing a Tricky Tray needs to reach out to Kathy Rooney. She knows how to do it. Great. I mean, there are so many amazing gifts. Of course, I won my basket and the door prize, and Ken cleaned up. He got a lot of baskets.
I did all right. All right. Yeah, thank you. We're adjourned. Motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second. Voila.